This is Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. With your hosts, Brendan Spinner, Michael Burns, and Kyle Rose.
Hello and welcome into episode 8 of Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. I am Brandon, alongside, as always, Michael and Kyle. It is a new day, guys. The World Series is over. No more baseball for 100 days. And something different. Michael, you're on assignment. You're out. Where you at?
I'm on location, baby. We got Michael Burns here out in the field. We are in South Carolina, Columbia to be exact, doing some business. Happened to be a nice spot for bourbon shopping, though. I did score a bottle of Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond for MSRP. It was a nice score for me tonight. We'll see if I can get lucky again tomorrow night. Back to you, Brandon.
I will rate that as a 6 out of 10 on the reporter scale, but we're working on it.
It reminds me of work, and we're not at work.
Yeah, we deal with reporters every day here, Michael. Kyle, how you doing today, man?
I'm all right, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. Kind of trying to figure out what to do with myself because baseball's over, but it was a beautiful day here in Cincinnati. We've got a couple of nice days coming up, and then winter's really going to set up here. So enjoy the southeast there, Mikey, because we're going to get cold here soon. What you doing in South Carolina? Work trip?
Yeah, work
Work.
It's a nicer work spot than I've been before, rather than middle of a desert or somewhere.
Yeah. But you went bourbon hunting. Anything cool other than the Heaven Hill you found?
Yes. So the third shop I walked into did have Knob Creek 18, and so it didn't have a price on it. It was just on the shelf on the top.
Yeah,
and so I asked the guy. This was a hole in the wall. Yeah. And so I asked the guy, "Hey, how much?" He goes, "Oh, I'll have to check." So he comes back and goes, "Oh, I got it listed for $500. I'll give it to you for $400." It's like, okay. And so he goes, "Yeah, it's a one-time release. I've never done it before." I was like, "Gotcha. Yep, that's pretty cool, man." And I walked out.
I know. It's only $180 or close to that.
500?
Yeah.
Come on. He must have just pulled that number out of his ass.
Hold on.
Well,
500.
and he tried to act like he was trying to give me a deal at 400. 500, but I'll give it to you for 400.
More than 200.
I was like, am I getting two of them at 400?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do that.
Yeah. I still don't know if I would do that.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it is true. Okay.
That's pushing it.
It was closer.
Kyle, how was your weekend, man?
Good. Celebrated baby girl.
Mm-hmm.
She turned 2 and caught in some baseball. So all was good.
Good.
Except the Astros won.
We don't have to talk about it, but I guess we do because that's our podcast.
I think our sponsor is a big Astros fan, so we probably got to cut that out. So remember, at about 3 minutes into this segment, we got to clip the Astros
Boost
smack
the
talk. Boost the audio. Well, as again, welcome into Barrels and Barrels, of Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Just want to give all of you a big shout out who continue to listen week after week. Our numbers continue to look great. So thank you to each and every one of you who chimes in on Instagram, on those reviews. And again, please rate and review us 5 stars if at all possible. If it's not 5 stars, just leave it in the comments that it's not 5 stars, and please rate us 5 stars. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on YouTube as well. We're going to be putting out a lot more video content coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So,
and just because baseball's dead, we're going to have reviews of free agent signings and team reviews and outlooks. The off season is just
as busy. Sometimes maybe as busy as a regular season or playoffs. So we've got a lot coming out and coming down the road. So keep an eye out and don't forget to follow us on all those social media platforms. We usually shout out our listeners. That was just one kind of big wrap up of a shout out for listeners. But one listener stands out amongst the others just because he has probably been the most consistent about reaching out, talking to us about each and every episode. And he sent the first show gift. A big thank you to Ben, also known as Bourbon in the Burrow. He's out in Springboro, Iowa. He sent us 2 samples, Michael and I. Kyle got nothing because he doesn't drink.
Jack squat.
And that's how it should be. Start drinking the juice, or what did you call it? The sauce.
The sauce.
And you might start to get what you want. But yeah, so a big shout out to him. We're doing a blind tasting this week for our bourbon or whiskey review. I don't know what it is. So it could be a whiskey review. It could be a bourbon review. We'll find out.
Yeah, so Ben, you might see that mine's labeled blue. I did relabel it for TSA when they found it in my bag. I thought it'd be questionable if they found Smoke Show. Is that what yours said, Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it said Smoke Show and they found a little vial in my bag, I thought it might have been questionable, so I did relabel it Bourbon for Podcast.
Yeah, I'm upset that you didn't use any of Brandon and I's suggestions for your label.
Well, he should have left it as Smoke Show because that's just like the chick sitting in the bed behind him right now. A smoke show in his hotel room. Sorry, Angie.
Sorry.
But
why are we still laughing about that? Let's go. Come on, let's get further.
It was funny. If everybody else is laughing, you can already hear the listeners.
And he did handle it like a true husband. He's like, "No, Angie, I love you." He's just more like,
I'm going to hire. For those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, Kyle just imitated Michael, who kind of just hovered over the bed in his camera. But, of course, a big shout out to Ben at Bourbon in the Burrow. So we're going to crack this open. Michael, you got yours through TSA, so I wonder if the pressure changed everything for you. But
Hey. They don't age bourbon in the air. They've got it by ocean with Jeffers Ocean, you know.
I think we could try something. It's colder up there, though, so that would mean it wouldn't expand as much. You might have to, fly it into the desert for a couple of weeks and then fly it to the North Pole back and forth. And here's another thing. Michael's going to be drinking this out of a paper cup? Is that what that
yes,
is?
I was just about to say, I didn't bring my glass in my fancy carrying case, so I'm so
This is a
disappointed
good
in
one.
myself.
It smells fantastic.
It's burning through the paper cup.
It's fire. Ooh.
Sure, I'm just going to pour this whole thing.
I have a feeling I know what this is already, but
while you're sniffing,
yeah,
I want to give a shout out to the Florence Y'alls.
That's right.
Frontier League team here in Northern Kentucky, who, as my post said, follow me, BNB_roads. Sick content over there. Just kidding. Dress up like our mascot, get a free bobblehead.
Dress up for Halloween, right?
Yeah, strictly on Halloween. So I love me a bobblehead.
No, it's just a sniff.
So I dressed up like their mascot. They sent me the bobblehead. Love that team. Excited to do some things with them next season.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, as Kyle mentioned, they're an independent league baseball team here. They play a lot of different teams all across the country. I know there's a couple out of the Chicago suburbs that they play. Actually, the voice in our intro, Andy Bellison, he was the voice of the Chicago team in that league. So a lot of ties here all across the country. So cool stuff there. Big shout out to the Y'alls. Go check out Kyle's Instagram page of the picture of him as the bobblehead doll. It is hilarious. So to put this in perspective, for those of you who have no idea, in Florence, there is a water tower that says Florence Y'all, and that is where the team gets its name. And their mascot is the water tower. So that is what Kyle dressed up as. Kyle, can you describe it head to toe?
Phallic.
Sorry, what?
It's a water tower, white with red pinwheels, I guess, pinstripes, and that's their mascot. The head is the top of the water tower, and it's got a face on it.
Yeah,
fantastic. I can picture it right. I can totally picture it.
It's got a red and white coloring to it.
Head's round, but more, not a sphere, but wide.
Mushroom.
I mean, you've seen a water tower. You know what a water tower looks like, or do they not have those in Alabama?
They certainly do. Okay, so Michael, what are you getting on this?
It's hard to get a nose out of a freaking paper cup, but that's why I keep coughing because I'm trying to really swirl it and get a big, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But on the taste, the palate, I immediately feel like it's a Tennessee whiskey from Lynchburg.
That's good. That's fantastic. It's higher proof. I was from the nose. I was getting a weeded nose. Right off the top, I got fruit, a little bit of cherry. It's got a sweet smell to me.
It does finish sweeter, like cherry, like you just said. That's exactly what I was going to say. It finishes that way on the very front. My first thought on the front when I first sipped it was Jack Daniels. And I was like, before I could feel anything else, I was like, is this Coy Hill? Maybe Jack Daniels Coy Hill. If it's smoke show, high proof.
Dude, this is incredible. Big thank you to Ben. I've got cherry. A little. It's like a mix of maple and creme brulee to me. I don't know if you're pulling some of that. It's probably out of a paper cup. I'm
get a lot of the finish. I'm able to get the nose. I'm struggling with on a paper cup.
That is.
People in the room next door are like, why does this guy keep sniffing?
Y'all got any more of that?
So I've got cherries and sweet with the nose. I've got cherry wood flavoring, creme brulee. No shot to anybody that we have already rated, but this one's already probably the best one we've had so far.
There's something floating in my paper cup.
How come you didn't bring a Glencairn?
I actually picked one out. I'm pretty sure I didn't. I remember grabbing one, and I just forgot to put it in my fancy carrying case, my barrel carrying case. Remember I have?
Mm-hmm. Oh man.
Is it finished, or it's got?
No.
I think it's. You don't think so?
I don't think so. Not to me. This is riveting audio here. We're sniffing and drinking. That Kentucky Chew.
I don't think it's weeded though.
The nose to me was wheat. That's at first, but I got like cinnamon. It's like a cherry cinnamon creme brulee mixture. The finish is fantastic.
The finish, I get that creme brulee. I get cherry. Then finishing into that creme brulee. It lingers well of that. It's not a spicy, oaky linger at all. I don't get a lot. I get oak on the front, into a cherry, into a creme brulee.
It coats the mouth well. It's not thin. It's not oily. It's probably like the most perfect consistency.
Let me check out my color.
So it is. So Michael's in a paper cup. I would say it's got a reddish tint to it. It's very dark in my mind. I mean,
that's why I want to think it's finished, and maybe like in a sherry cask, like one of our other samples we have.
I'm gonna guess Ben wouldn't send us a finished drink.
Hey, if he thought it was dope, man.
True.
He wouldn't. Sure, you talking with bourbon in your mouth?
Mm-hmm. I almost get like a s'moresy taste to it too.
All right, so you want to guess the proof?
I think it's like 120, 125.
I don't get that.
Maybe one. I think it's 120.
Michael.
Please hold.
So while Michael's...
It's not up there. No, it's not that high. I want to say it's like 114, 118.
Are we doing over under?
Well, if we're going to do over or under, I'm going to do 108.
Dick.
For the people listening at home, I have a picture of the bottle. So
Kyle knows what
everything
this is.
off the bottle. Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Brandon, you said what? 120, 125.
I'm going to say 114.
You just because Kyle mentioned over under, you completely changed.
Yep.
You were
Well, we
up
didn't
there
talk
in the
about.
20s.
We didn't talk about. Are we playing a game here? Like,
We were just talking, and all of a sudden it got competitive, and Brandon had to play The Price is Right.
Okay, Kyle made it. The Price is Right. He went the
at
over
the end,
under.
we're going to spin the wheel.
No, I'm going to say 118.
All
118.
right, I'll go with 114. I'll go with 117. No, I'll go with. I'm about 114. I don't think
Man.
it's real. This is my first. I didn't build up at all with anything else, and this didn't hit too high.
I had a poor Eagle Rare earlier.
I had an IPA.
At dinner.
And I had some water.
So before we get into what this is, what would you rate it? I think your rating's probably going to be tainted.
Taking another sip.
Yeah, because
It's
of the...
it's finished. It's finished.
You're drinking out of a paper cup. It's finished with a paper cup.
With paper coating there.
I'm
not a big finished bourbon fan.
I would drink this all day.
I think it is good because like a barrel dovetail is too much for me. And this is what this reminds me of is barrel dovetail. It could be barrel dovetail. Actually, no, barrel dovetail is much fruitier. This is less fruity. It's a good fruity side, but it's not as heavy as the dovetail is. I don't know what this would be.
If we have any listeners still left after we just spent 15 minutes talking and chewing on this, as I asked, I'm going to rate this. Can we go with our first Hall of Famer? I don't know.
You think it's a Hall of Famer? Really?
I would drink this any day, all day. I would smash this.
I think it's finished. I think I'm still like at most an everyday player.
You're drinking it out of a paper cup.
You were the one drinking out of a little dugout nug.
Dugout, yeah, when it was Tennessee. Fine. I'm going with all-star borderline Hall of Famer on this one.
All right.
All right, Kyle. What do we got?
What do you want to know?
Well,
you want to know what it is?
You know what
or
my
you
guess
want the
is?
proof?
My guess is it's something. My first thought was William LaRue Weller. That was my guess.
If I just
Michael?
rated WLW an everyday player at most, then I just need to quit Beat Bourbon Reviews.
Kyle, what do we got?
So it's 105 proof.
Okay.
It is the first bottled bourbon, Old Forester King Ranch.
Oh,
Oh,
that's fantastic. Thank you, Ben. So the King Ranch, so that's brand new. There's only a
limited release, right?
yeah. I think it's only it's limited to Texas. So I would definitely go grab a bottle of this. Let's see what the notes are online on the old King's Ranch Old Forester 105 proof. Okay, yeah, I'm still getting my getting my old taste buds back. Color maple syrup, aroma dried cherries. We got that one. Cranberries, toasted pecans, and marshmallows. I said marshmallows with the s'mores.
You did?
Flavor, sweet dark chocolate, tobacco, leather spices mingle with the toasted and caramelized oak and nut character. Finish long and warming.
It was only available in Texas.
Only available in Texas for a retail of $69.99. So cool stuff there. A big thank you and a shout out to Ben. This is a fantastic pour. Old Forester. Very cool. So thank you to Ben. And if you guys want us to sample something, I've been listening to Whitetails and Whiskey. I always...
Is it whiskey and whitetails?
It certainly is.
Idiot.
Do I have sexlixia? That was a joke on dyslexia. I may have to...
Or wasn't?
Or was it? Why do I do that all the time? It's walk-offs and whiskey, and whiskey and whitetails. But I've been listening to them. They do this thing called Just a Sip. And they have some of their listeners send them pour. I'm not saying that we are going to say, hey, send us your stuff. But if you want to and you want us to feature you on a pour, we would love that. That's fantastic. So, again, thanks, Ben. I already smashed nearly the entire 2 ounces.
So knowing what it is, Brandon, does it change your view of it at all?
No, I think it's an all-star.
You still think it's an all-star?
Yeah. That is fantastic. I really enjoy it.
I love that blind. That's what I love, because I've done a blind before and trashed something that has a big name. So that's cool.
Midwinters, right?
I wanted to drain for it.
Well, again, big thank you to Ben. Thank you to Kyle for playing along and being our secret keeper here.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah. Shout out to Ben.
Yeah, big shout out to Ben.
Hey gang, we wanted to take a break from the booze and ball talk to talk about some booze and ball apparel. Walkoffs and Whiskey is doing something special for you, the listeners. Head over to walkoffsandwhiskey.com and use the code BNB at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your purchase. That's code BNB at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your purchase. Now, let's get back to the show.
Well, that's the bourbon portion of the podcast. We're going to turn to baseball because that still's going on, even though the World Series ended, and this is the baseball portion of the podcast.
There's still the fall league.
Oh, the fall league. There's also
Yeah, it's over too.
Yeah, I think that just happened a couple days ago, right? Fall league all stars.
Fall league all stars was Sunday.
Murray's
won MVP. Let's go.
Let's go. He's a stud. But we're going to do trivia again. I've got 2 of them up my sleeve yet again. The first one I'm going to give you, and then the second one is probably going to be slightly easier. But first one, do you know who the last rookie to win the World Series MVP was?
Was it in our lifetime?
I'm not going to tell you that one.
Kyle, you want me to go first or you?
I have not a clue, so you can just say what you think.
I think it was.
He looked it up. He looked it up.
I did not. I've told Kyle already what it is. I believe it is Larry Wayne Jones with the Atlanta Braves.
It's not Larry Walker or Larry Jones, but it is Larry Sherry back in 1959 with the Dodgers. I told you guys you weren't going to know who this was. Next one.
You could have told me it's not in my lifetime.
What did Chipper do? Chipper won. I
don't think they won the World Series when he was a rookie.
And Chipper.
Oh, he could have been like the only rookie to do X in the World Series. When the Braves won the World Series, didn't one of the pitchers win that? World Series MVP, Braves. We're going to have our fact checker, Kyle, the producer.
So World Series MVP favorite, Jeremy Pena, is 1 hit shy of tying Chipper Jones for 4th most all time. Oh, no. Jeremy Pena did surpass Chipper Jones for the 3rd most total bases by a rookie in a single postseason.
3rd most. I think Arozarena is up at the top, isn't he?
Arozarena, Yuli Gurriel, and then Jeremy Pena and Chipper Jones.
Yuli, a rookie, when he was like 34.
That's kind of a weird part about MLB.
Yeah. But that was the first trivia question. Second one, do you know who the last team to clinch the World Series in their home ballpark was? It happened in our lifetime, Kyle. It happened in our lifetime. Team in here.
Was it the Dodgers?
Michael?
2020 doesn't count, Kyle, so you lose already. I'm going to say the Washington Nationals.
The 2020 season was not played in L.A. because it was played on a neutral site, so the Dodgers may have been the home team when they won, but they did not win it in their building. It was the 2013 Boston Red Sox, so it's been 10 seasons. Can you believe that? That
sucks. So
right?
That means it's always been the non-home team favorite.
Yeah, so the 14 was the Giants. 15 was the Royals. 16 the Cubs did in Game 7 on the road. 17 was the Red Sox again. They did it. Or no, that was the Astros. 18 was the Red Sox. 19 was the Nationals. 20 was the Dodgers. And then 21 last year with the Braves. So that's kind of crazy that's how many years in a row it has been since the team clinched at home. Just something that I thought was cool, but also different. Because the Astros, if you haven't heard already, you're under a rock. The Astros are your World Series champions. Game 5 and Game 6, they win to take the win in a series win of 4-2. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts? We're not going to go too long on this. We all know the Astros won. But what were your impressions? What did you think stood out for the last 2 games? Michael?
The Astros pitching shut them down. Phillies couldn't score. They struck out, I think I saw 38 times in the last 3 or 4 games, something like that. 38 times.
It was ridiculous.
So, like every postseason run, pitching wins.
Yeah. Justin Verlander looked better, I feel like.
First career World Series win.
Yeah. He got the jitters out, or he got the pep talk that he needed, or whatever. But
sticky stuff from Bramber.
yeah, could be. But, as a Reds guy, congrats to Dusty for finally getting the ring. Now let's have somebody win next year.
Yeah, somebody different. And maybe we'll just do an impromptu who do we think is going to win 2023 in a little bit. But my thoughts were that as Michael mentioned, the Phillies bats, which were there all postseason, just went asleep. The only one that didn't was Kyle Schwarber. He was the only one who got the home run in Game 5 right off the bat versus Verlander as we were recording. And then Game 6, he got the first run. Boy, what a bomb. He was the only one who could get on top of Framber's pitches and put Phillies out in front. Now, the one, I guess, questionable portion of that game, or the things I've seen people complain about the most. What did you think about the hit by pitch there in the bottom of the 6th inning to Maldonado? What were your thoughts, Mike?
Again, it looked like a chance where he didn't want to bat. But now you look at the news that came out after the game, and he was playing with a broken hand.
That was
right,
Bregman.
Maldonado?
That was Bregman, I thought.
No. Bregman broke his finger in the 8th inning of Game 6. Maldonado, the catcher,
I didn't see that.
Playing with a broken throwing hand. So his top hand has been broken, I don't know how long, but at least I think through the World Series. So a little bit of that makes sense is he couldn't hold the bat strong, and that's why he was fine trying to lean into it a little bit there.
Yeah,
that was not a get out of the way. That was a arm. His body did not move.
It wasn't nearly as egregious as the Diaz attempt in Game 1. I'll give Maldonado this, and they called it on the broadcast. He changed where he was in the box, which is what I think attributed to that. From overhead, it looks like it almost would have caught the inside corner.
Yeah, I thought it was a strike at first.
But, hey, it is what it is. That's what happened. You still got to get outs. I know Wheeler was shoving through the first 5, and from there he kind of unraveled. But you've got to get outs. You can't let the 9th hitter in the order get on base, and then he made a bad pitch to Altuve, and then Pena, and then bases were loaded. Or not bases were loaded, but he had runners at, was it first and second at that point? And then Alvarez just went yard. What about that bomb?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
You think that went farther than 450 feet? It had to. There's no way it went 450.
I mean, that was a beautiful swing. Oh.
Like, I don't know if I agree with bringing Alvarado in at that point, but I mean, I knew it the moment he came in. I was like, Jordan's going to do his Jordan thing right here.
Now, Alvarado was a lefty, right? That's the matchup to play, isn't it?
Yeah, but...
Had that curveball coming away from him.
But they showed on the game that Alvarez hit better and for the same amount of power versus lefties this year than he did against righties. And I thought Wheeler dealt with him in the first portion of the game pretty well. I know it's the 3rd time in the lineup, and Wheeler was having runners on base for the first time, really. But still, I mean, Alvarado, I think, was one of the arms who had a rough time in Game 5. I know he's one of your studs, him and Sir Anthony, but
Yep, sir.
Sir Anthony, but yeah. Well, for those of you who didn't know, Jordan Alvarez hit a mammoth home run that I didn't think a ball could be hit up there. The batter's eye, the top of the batter's eye. Did you see the guy who caught the home run? What he said?
No, I didn't see that.
He said, I got these tickets, and I was like, oh, everything's perfect, except there's never going to be a home run hit up here because it's too far away.
I did see he immediately had security guards standing with him.
Oh, yeah.
Caught it.
I'm not surprised. But a big hat tip to the Astros. That's the hat I'm wearing. A big congratulations to all those Astros fans. We've got several Astro fans listeners. We've got Books and Bourbon _NP, who is a huge Astros fan. Walk-offs and whiskey. I got it right, guys. He's a big Astros fan. He just had a big sale. And if you haven't heard, you can get a discount through us, as Kyle said earlier on in the show. So Jeremy Pena wins MVP. What would you guys think? Deserved? Would you have given it to somebody else? Is there another player of the week or weekend that you would give that to, or is it Jeremy Pena? Michael?
No, I think I mentioned in the last pod, Jeremy was right there, but I gave it to Bregman. But Jeremy played solid defense, even though Altuve on one play froze up. His controller came unplugged for the moment. And when he tried flipping it to Altuve,
Yeah,
he hit clutch home runs. Pena, for a rookie, I mean, outstanding.
Kyle?
The only other person that I think, like, obviously he deserved what he got. The player of the week I would give to Kyle Schwarber. He's the only other person that I feel is much deserving of that.
I've got one other. I do think that if the Phillies would have won, it probably would have been Kyle Schwarber, who may have won the MVP. Just an absolute stud, and he continues to hit at every level of the playoffs. But I'm going to give it to Framber Valdez. Dude, in 2 games in the World Series, he went 2-0. He had a 1.46 ERA in 12 innings. He struck out 18. He only gave up 6 hits. He did have 5 of those walks and the 1 home run to Schwarber, but, I mean, you can't ask for much. He got you 50% of the wins in the World Series. Yeah, he may have had some sticky stuff on Game 2. But,
I can do that with silly putty on my hands, too.
Game 6, I was watching him like a hawk, and he did the same thing in Game 6 as he did in Game 2. So, until you're proven guilty, you're innocent, right? So I'm going to give it to Framber Valdez, and that's the guy I go with. So now that the playoffs are over, we've got to revisit this old thing called the Barrels and Barrels Bourbon and Bracket Challenge. You guys remember that?
Do we have to?
Do you remember that whole thing?
Do we have to?
Yes, we have to. We
The one where we
promised.
said the Braves were going to win the World Series?
Yeah. So to recap, at the beginning of this, in episode 3, we made our predictions: who was going to win what series, who was going to win each round, and we made a bracket. The winner of the bracket would win a bottle of Weller Special Reserve, and this is for our listeners, not anybody associated with the podcast. But we had 9-10 entries, and we had a lot of people get close to winning. We had 3 within a point of each other at the end of the entire series. But the Astros winning does cap it off. To recap our portion of the bracket, finishing in 3rd, Michael Burns. Can we get a... Yep. With 3 points. With
3 points.
You got your 3 points in the first 2 weeks. You didn't get a single point since.
I thought we were predicting who would lose each round.
Yes. That's why you
Otherwise, I would win.
It's why the Blue Jays in the World Series, I guess. So Michael finishing with 3 points. Kyle finishing in 2nd with 5. And Brandon picking the World Series winner with 15 points and the Astros. So let's turn to the more important portion of this. Who won the viewers or the listeners part of this?
Who won the bourbon?
Who won the bourbon? So you're going to win a bourbon of Weller Special Reserve. We've got a whiskey and walk-offs mouse pad, which I tell you has come in clutch. I've got one of them as well, so I think you're going to really like those. And then you may get a couple other cool little things, maybe some samples or some other trinkets sent to you. So the big winner, it came down to either Jake Plasmeyer, and if you listened to the last episode, you heard me singing Old MacDonald Had a Farm.
Trying to.
Attempting. Jake Plasmeyer or Joseph Campbell. And can we get a drum roll? Jake Plassmeyer with 15 points comes in with the victory because he is the only other person who had the Houston Astros winning the World Series, and it took the Astros winning the World Series for him to actually win the bottle. So, Jake, congratulations to you. Reach out to us, whatever it is. I think you sent your bracket in via email. So, again, email us. That is barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com, and we'll get your information, get that bottle shipped out. Just so everybody knows, I won the bracket challenge overall. I'm going to say it louder for the kids in the back because Michael just muted his mic. Because I had 15 points and Jake had 15 points, it came down to the tiebreaker. I had 31 total runs in the World Series. Jake had 26, and there were 40 runs scored in the World Series. Not trying to scratch my own back, but I'm just saying.
I said this at the beginning, that we were paying for Brandon to keep his own bourbon.
I don't win the bottle. I don't win the bottle. We're sending it to Jake. So, Jake, congratulations to you. So, now all sites are set on 2023, right? We already turned the page to next season. Congrats to the Astros, but now we look ahead to who's going to win the 2023 World Series. Michael, quick impromptu, top of your head, who do you think? We're not going to hold the receipts on this. Who are you going to pick?
What do you think? So this is going to be the same 2014 to 2015 situation. The Phillies made it to the World Series and lost, or the Royals made it to the World Series and lost in 14, right?
Mm-hmm.
And came back and won it in 15.
Yep.
I think the Phillies can add on to what they have. They have most of their bats not coming back, but then maturing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Bryson Stott maturing at shortstop.
And they now have been there. None of them have made the playoffs, right? Like, look at the pitching staff. None of them had pitched in the World Series or in the playoffs before. So
Right. Alec Boehm, you know, he was a top 5, top 10 draft pick. He's going to mature. He's going to love this place some more. I think the Phillies could come back next year, add a few pieces that they need, and they could win it. I think they showed what they have.
Kyle, just a quick off the cuff. Who you got a team that you may think may make that next step this year?
I really liked, I forget who tweeted it, but you always hear that these teams are so discouraged. They're packing up their bags. They just want to get on the bus and go. And the Phillies sat in their locker room drinking beers and talking about the season. I don't think they're done. Nope. I think they could come back and win the World Series, but the only other team that I could think might do it are the Braves, for all the players that they extended or put contracts on for like the next 10 years or something. We talked about that in previous episodes. I think they also have clutch players that could get them to the World Series again.
So you both picked the Phillies. This kind of reminisces back to episode 3.
Look, don't listen to us because we can't pick shit.
No.
Yeah, apparently you got to listen to Brandon. He's about to toot his own horn here again.
No. So what I was going to say is we all had the Braves in the World Series. I was the only one who had the Astros. But I agree with what you guys said. I really like that Phillies team. But that division, man, it's probably the toughest division in baseball outside of the AL East. Both the East divisions are insane. The AL East, you had 4 teams vying for the playoffs this year. This year, the Phillies snuck in as that 6-seed wildcard team. I'm going to go into the American League, and I think this is a team that may surprise you guys. It was the youngest team in baseball this year. They're going on the longest World Series drought currently. The Cleveland Guardians. They had the youngest team. They showed fight. God, Michael's like, I didn't. This is an early guess. They've got one of the most underrated stars in the game in Jose Ramirez and probably one of the best starting pitching staffs returning unless Bieber gets traded. You've got McKenzie. You've got Bieber. If you got Savali back on Mark, and then you've got Plesac, which are 4 pretty good arms to go.
And Cal Quantrill.
Yeah, and Cal Quantrill probably slides down to the 5th in my mind if Plesac is healthy and pitching the way he should.
So could they afford to trade Bieber for a bat?
Right.
Maybe?
So, and that's what I'm saying. They're the youngest team in baseball coming into this year. They showed that fight. They made it to the next round in the playoffs, and they fought the Yankees to a Game 5. Just think of that, especially with Terry Francona. The Guardians are maybe a team to just watch next year. I'm going to put it down Guardians here on November the 7th. That's who I'm going with for next year. And that takes me right into the next year's odds. FanDuel Sportsbook showing the Atlanta Braves at 8-1, the Astros at 6-1, and the Dodgers at 5-1. Those are your three front runners. So Dodgers, Astros, and Braves are your top three. The Yankees and the Mets round out the top five. And then the Blue Jays at plus 1,200. The Padres, the Phillies, the Mariners, the Cardinals, the Rays, and then the White Sox. The White Sox would be a sneaky team. They were a big pick to win the World Series this past year, but they kind of
probably the biggest fallout too.
Yeah, and they've got the newest manager of that top 12. Guardians come in at plus 40-1, or so plus 4,000. That's 40-1 odds. I would say if you're a gambler and you maybe want to make some money, but put a couple bucks on the Guardians right now at 40-1 to win the World Series. That's just a thought.
The Dodgers are the favorite.
Dodgers are the favorite, and they are currently 5-1. So you win $5 for every dollar you bet. So that's $100.
Is Kershaw a free agent too?
Kershaw is a free agent.
Okay.
They've got a lot of free agents. I think 3/5 of their rotation. Well, Haney wasn't technically a huge part of the rotation, but he was part of the rotation.
They've got Buehler and May and Urias coming back.
But
So
Buehler's going to be
3 studs.
But Buehler's going to be coming off the DL, and I don't think he'll be coming until halfway through the season. And that
Was it Tommy John?
I think it was Tommy John. He missed the
I don't
whole
think
year.
it was.
Was it
I
not?
believe it was Tommy
No.
John.
Thought it was Tommy John. But so Buehler will be back. But those are your. It was Tommy John. So again, the
That's
Dodgers.
second. That's
Yeah.
his second Tommy
Tommy
John.
John.
Yeah, he had it in wasn't he drafted with it or drafted knowing that he had to have it?
Right, out of Vanderbilt. And
Yeah.
that's the reason he slipped to the 20s in the draft.
Is because
The
they knew
Dodgers
he
got
was
him.
hurt and he needed it. Another sneaky team, I think, might be the San Francisco Giants. They're 40-1. Again, I don't know if they're necessarily going to win the World Series, but there's some value there. That's what I want. When it comes to gambling, I look at the value. That's why I put money on the Phillies at 30-1 at the beginning of the season, because if you get to this point, you can start to hedge your bets, and that's when you start to make potential money. And with gambling coming to Ohio, Kyle, that might be something you might want to think of come the first of the year. So moving on, as we look at that, free agency is what's really going to spur a lot of the movement here in the offseason. Free agency technically began 2 days ago, where players can elect free agency. Players won't be eligible to sign until 5 days after the World Series ends, which will be this Thursday. And there are a couple important dates as we look ahead to next week as well. We've got the non-tender deadline. We've got the Rule 5 deadline, as well as the qualifying offer deadline. So a lot coming up free agency-wise. We've had a lot of people already opt out of contracts. What's the biggest name that you're watching outside of Aaron Judge, Michael?
DeGrom is going to be a fun one. Who's going to spend the big bucks on a risk reward? You're either going to get your stud DeGrom or you're going to get him for 10 starts.
Mm-hmm.
But even down the stretch, when he came back, he did not look like his typical self.
No.
He gave up a lot of runs.
Mm-hmm. Part of that is wondering how much rust was there, but also he's getting older, right? It's his first year of free agency. I think it's the first time he's ever going to reach the free agency mark, and that's why he opted out. Do you have
so pitcher, hitter? I'm interested to see where Correa ends up a little bit since he signed 1 year with the Twins and then is coming back.
And that's
Trey Turner could be another one. That could be fun. I think he's the guy to get.
And I believe Correa is the only shortstop who will not be receiving the qualifying offer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he received it last year from the Astros, and then he signed that 1 year deal with the Twins. And the qualifying offer kind of restricts the players from making as much money as they can because the team that signs them has to give up a subsequent pick in the following draft, depending on where they finished and all of that. So it's kind of a penalty to the team who signs them. Correa, you can only receive the qualifying offer once in your career. And being that Correa has received that, he's most likely to get the biggest and probably the best deal of the shortstops on the market. And we've got 4 of them. Kyle, is there one of the 4 that stands out the most to you, or is there a free agent outside of Judge that stands out that you're most interested to see where he goes?
Out of all the ones that you said, I'm intrigued to see where Carlos goes, Correa. The only other ones that I had, I'm curious to see if Verlander stays in Houston and what happens to Dansby Swanson.
Yeah. My thoughts, Verlander probably stays. Just my thought, he's won 2 with the Astros. He's probably content just staying there. They've got a young core still that are very young. I just said that. They've got a very young core. They've got a winning culture, and it's hard to leave that. He wanted to leave the Tigers because at the point where they were at, he knew they were on the downfall. I don't see him leaving. He's made a lot of money in his career. I think right now it's just trying to rack up rings. That would be my guess. What do you think, Mikey?
With who? You said
Verlander.
Verlander. I would love for him to go somewhere else. Just put a different uni on.
Mm-hmm. He'll be 40.
The Astros gambled when he had that one down year with Detroit and won that gamble. Just go pitch somewhere else.
Do you know where he wanted to go? Have you heard this? He told the Tigers.
Don't say Chicago.
He told the Tigers, "I want to be on the Cubs," and the Cubs chose Jose Quintana instead. So that worked out very well. Thanks, Theo. But Theo did get us a ring, so I can't really fault him.
We lost our Eloy and Cease, two studs. Yeah. I would have been okay if we would have got Verlander had that. But I mean, Quintana was the dark horse at that point, MVP. Everybody said,
right,
17 or 18, he was the dark horse Cy Young winner.
Looking at the top 20 in my mind, I think probably Trey Turner is the one I'm most interested in. I think he is the one who brings balance to the top of the lineup. He's a great fielder, even though it didn't show in the playoffs when they played versus the Padres. But he brings speed to the lineup. He can bring power. And he can play multiple positions if need be. He's a primary shortstop, but he's played in the outfield for a couple of teams.
When he first came up, he was center field.
Yeah, he was center field with the Nationals, wasn't he? And I think he can play the corner spots if need be. And, of course, if you're playing shortstop, you should be able to move to third and second base. I think with the bigger bases coming into play next year, because that's a new rule that's coming in.
Schwarber's going to lead the league in stolen bases?
Yes, Kyle Schwarber will lead the league in stolen bases. I think there is a good chance that Trey Turner could get to 60 stolen bases with the shorter distance between bases.
How much value is in his speed? If he lost a tick, is he still valuable like that?
I think so, just because he's right now a 5-tool player, and he goes down to a 4-tool player as he loses his speed. But in his career, he has 124 home runs. He's got a batting average of 302. How much of that is speed aided just by those ground balls that he beats out? I don't know, but he drove in 100 runs this year. So it's not
like you said, he's that 4-tool player. He hits for average and with power as well. I mean, he's not freaking Kyle Schwarber hitting 450 feet for 46 home runs in a year. But he hit, 20-something home runs?
So going back to 2018, he's got 19, 12 is the low mark in 2020. But remember, they only played 60 games in 2020. So 12 home runs in 60 games.
That was a lot.
It's a lot.
Tatis's amount too.
Yeah, and then he had 28 last year between the Dodgers and the Nationals, and then 21 in 2022. So he's going to hit 20-plus home runs. He's going to steal. He had 27 stolen bases this year. He had 32. So maybe 60 is a little bit out there. But it's easy to think with the shorter bases and the new rules regarding the amount of pickoffs pitchers are going to be allowed, that stolen bases are going to go up, and I think that that's probably going to lead to maybe 40 stolen bases, if not more. So I think Turner is the one guy who comes to your team who maybe fills multiple holes, like a leadoff hitter or a second hitter in the lineup. That's the one I'm most intrigued about.
Is that intrigued for a little of selfish reasons?
A little bit, but I still think whatever team he goes to, whether it's the Cardinals, who have been
Brandon.
The Phillies, the Cardinals, the Dodgers might grab them, but think of all the other teams who have shortstops on the market between the Braves. The Braves could try to go after him if they don't get Dansby. The Red Sox maybe try. There's a lot that can happen just from him signing or even Correa signing. So I'm out of the bunch. I'm going with Trey Turner as the guy I'm going to watch the most.
I will throw up if the Cardinals sign Trey Turner and Wilson Contreras. I will throw up.
And unfortunately, that's where I think Wilson's going to end up. So we already broke down a couple of those free agents. My thoughts, real off the bat. What do you think about Xander Bogaerts? You like him? Don't like him? Where do you think he goes?
I like him. I think he had of the four shortstops: Correa, Swanson, Turner, and Bogarts. I think he had the highest OPS this last year. He's consistently a 300 hitter. He's up there. He's always a consistent guy. You know what you're gonna get out of Bogarts every year. I think he could easily be I could argue that with Correa too. Slide over to third base real easily, and do well. So I think like in a situation where you have a good defensive shortstop, Bogarts would sign and slide over to third base. He's young too. He's not too old.
He's 30. So is Trey Turner. Correa's 28, and Dansby's 29. So they're all within 2 years of each other. I think whatever shortstop you sign, you're probably getting a good shortstop. They're all going to hit for power. They're all going to field pretty well. Very strong shortstop market, and I think that's really going to be the hiccup in the offseason. And is you're waiting for which one going to drop first, and then you're going to see a lot more movement.
What do you think 1 through 4? What's your 1 through 4 there? Those shortstops, Swanson included.
I'm going to say Turner, Bogarts, Correa, Dansby. That's my order.
I agree with that.
Just
I
because
think Correa hits max 280 kind of guy.
The down year for Correa this year was what kind of concerns me. And before we get too stat driven and bore the rest of the listeners, is there a pitcher outside of DeGrom that like makes you wonder? Is there a pitcher outside of DeGrom that you think really moves the market this offseason?
I had a pitcher in mind. It's Carlos Rodon pops in my head right away, but I don't think it's him. Go to Kyle, and I'll have my answer in a second.
Kyle,
I'm curious to see if Kershaw stays in LA, because wasn't he talking like maybe Rangers or something?
He's from
season?
Dallas. He's from Dallas, so I think he would, if he were to leave the Dodgers, it would be to go to the Rangers. He would probably want to play for Bruce Bochy, who's the new Rangers head coach. I could see that. It's just at this point in your career, do you want to uproot every part of your life after staying in, you're 35, right? So 15 seasons or whatever he's been with the Dodgers. Part of me says yes. I didn't think John Lester was ever going to leave until he got traded. So I don't know. I think that's a very intriguing one. But at 35, does he have as much upside as, say, as Michael mentioned, Carlos Rodon? I think Carlos Rodon is probably your best power pitcher outside of DeGrom in this entire free agency market. That is going to have years worth of impact. Verlander, he's 40. So how many more years is he going to be able to continue to put this up? I think Rodon is the one power pitcher that you look at. Mikey?
Of the top 10 free agent pitchers, Rodon and Syndergaard are the same age at 30. Severino doesn't count anymore at 29, so I guess Rodon and Syndergaard are the youngest of the top 10 pitchers.
Yeah.
At 30 years old. The guy who I was thinking of is Chris Bassett. He is
34, I think.
He's 34, coming off the Mets. I don't think he has a lot on his arm, and he was a stud in Oakland. I don't think he quite had it with New York as much.
He had a career high 182, 1 2/3 innings this year. So,
but he's one I think that could be a sneaky pick, a sneaky sign that won't cost you, that won't break the bank, and will give you
a solid
number
2,
number 3, number 2, 3 pitcher.
So those are some names here, folks, over the next couple of weeks. Keep an eye out on our Instagram page. We're going to try to get those news breakers out as quick as possible. But also we'll have a couple of podcasts here breaking down maybe this guy went to this guy, or this team signed this team, or traded with this team. So something to watch for the next couple of weeks. The GM meetings are currently underway, so some of the groundwork is being laid as we speak. As we go towards the end of this, we've had a couple of those players opt out. We had a couple of those awards, or at least all the awards, the finalists announced. Real quick, AL MVP. I think we can all agree. Who do you think is going to be?
Aaron Judge.
Aaron Judge. Kyle?
Yeah.
NL MVP is between Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, and Manny Machado. Do we have a favorite there?
None of the above.
I think Goldschmidt is a lock. Kyle?
Okay.
Okay.
Dynamite drop in money. Dylan Cease, Alec Manoah, and Justin Verlander are the finalists for the AL Cy Young. I think we're all going on the Verlander side of things there. The NL Cy Young is going to be an interesting one. You've got Sandy Alcantara, Max Fried, and Julio Urias. Leaning anyway on that one?
I heard Urias and
Fried and Alcantara.
Alcantara.
Yeah.
He was, that dude threw how many complete games this year? You knew what you were getting out of that guy. That dude was a stud this year.
I think he was the only NL pitcher, I believe. You'll have to fact check me on this one, Kyle, but I think he's the only NL pitcher to throw more than 200 innings this year. Rookie of the Year over in the AL, Stephen Kwan with the Guardians, Julio Rodriguez with the Mariners, and Adley Rutschman with the Orioles. I think we're all in agreement that Julio's probably going to win that one. The NL.
Where's Jeremy Pena? Why isn't he top 3?
Yeah.
He started real strong at the beginning of the year and then kind of...
It's more of a second half award in my mind. Look at what Jonathan India did.
He threw 200 for 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and he's one of the only pitchers who's done that, I think. Verlander did it this year, too, I think. I think he was right at 200. Brendan Donovan with the Cardinals, Michael Harris II with the Braves, and Spencer Strider with the Braves. 2 Braves players. I'm probably leaning Spencer on this one. Michael?
Yeah, Spencer Strider looked like an ace out there this year.
Kyle?
Agreed.
Breaking the Braves rookie single season, or not single, but the single game strikeout record. Mm-hmm. Is that a rookie record or just a Braves record?
I don't know.
What was the question?
He struck out 16 batters in the game. Was that a Braves rookie record or strikeout record?
I thought it was a Braves entire team record, like the most ever by
no pitcher, rookie or not, had ever.
Right. I thought that was the statistic. In the NL, Manager of the Year goes to Dave Roberts, Buck Showalter, or Brian Snitker. Who would you give it to? I'm going Mets.
Snitker, I don't think. I almost would say Snitker kind of disappointed a little bit.
A little bit, but Roberts, your team was built to be the best. I mean, that's awesome that you made them the best. But Buck Showalter came in and took the Mets to almost winning the division, winning 100+ games. That's who I'm going with.
Yeah. Buck Showalter. I mean, was this his first year with the Mets?
Mm-hmm. He just signed, this in the offseason.
And he took the Mets to not Met. I mean, they did still kind of Met, but all year they were first place. All year until the end. Yeah.
And the AL Manager of the Year is going to be an incredibly difficult one in my mind. I could see it going to any one of these 3. Terry Francona, Scott Service with Mariners, or Brandon Hyde with the Orioles. I lean Service just because they made the playoffs and the Orioles didn't, but nobody expected the Orioles to be there, so I would give it to Hyde as well. So I don't think you can lose giving it to any one of those 3.
Who did the Orioles sign at the beginning of the year?
They traded away their best player, theoretically, outside of Rutschman with Mancini. Also, hats off, Trey Mancini. Congratulations on the World Series, beating cancer a couple years ago and now being a world champion after never playing in the playoffs and getting your first career playoff hit in Game 6. That's got to be friggin' sweet. But, I don't think you can go wrong giving it to anybody of those
Did they trade Cedric Mullins at the deadline?
No, I think he's still on the team.
They stayed? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they didn't sign. They didn't try this year, but they had a lot of kids on the team. Adley came up. What's the shortstop's name?
Shortstop.
Orioles shortstop.
Yeah. Long hair kid. Crap. Gunnar Henderson. No, Gunnar Henderson. That dude came up and performed like a top pick.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Brandon Hyde.
Yeah, Brandon Hyde or Scott Service. Scott Service did break the longest playoff drought in baseball at the time, which was 21 years for the Mariners. So that's where I lean, just because he made the playoffs. But I don't think you can go wrong either way. So a lot going on here over the next couple of weeks.
Such a hard division. Sorry.
What, the NL West or the AL West?
AL West, that was such a hard division.
You did have the World Series champions who kind of buzzed through everybody, but
Yeah, but the A's and the
Yeah.
Angels, they had to face a lot.
and the Rangers who were.
And
But still, I'm going to give it to the Mariners or Scott Service. So over the next week, you can expect a couple more episodes to drop. If you've made it this far, here's what you can get excited about. We've got a couple bourbon reviews, just straight bourbon reviews coming through. Not straight bourbon, but just bourbon or whiskey reviews. No baseball talk with that. And then more of some free agency news going to be dropping down the pipeline over the next couple of weeks just because of the nature of the game and where we're at in the offseason, so look out for that. You can always find us on Instagram, Barrels and Barrels Pod, Facebook, Barrels and Barrels Pod, and Twitter, Barrels and Barrels. We're on YouTube, Barrels and Barrels. Check us out there if you want more videos or if you just want to see our bright, shiny faces when we're podcasting. As far as email, if you want to reach out, send us an email. If you've made it this far, I'm going to ask you to please send us an email. We would love it just so we know that people have made it this far and make us feel better about ourselves. But you can email us, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. Michael, you're on Instagram. Where can we find you?
BNB_Burns.
And Kyle.
BNB_Roads.
And I am at whiskey_weather. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as Google Pods and iHeartRadio Podcasts. As we said earlier in the podcast, please rate us, review us, 5 stars, subscribe, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on podcasts. We would love your subscription. Please reach out, let us know, and let us know how we're doing. Michael, Kyle, any last words?
Don't drink bourbon out of a paper cup.
I would highly recommend that. Yes. Kyle?
Take us away, Mikey.
Let's go.
That is it for episode 8 of the Barrels and Barrels Bourbon and Baseball podcast.
Let's go.